Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. So today I just wanted to share my story with you all. I know it's been a couple of years, possibly 4 to 5 years actually, since I've shared it online. And so today I felt like that was just a good time for you to understand who I am and just my background, and for anyone out there who may feel like they're having a hard time relating to people, maybe you can relate to some of my story, and hopefully it just points you to Jesus. So I grew up as an army brat, meaning that my father was in the military, in the army, and so I was born on a military base and lived on a military base for the majority of my life. I was born in Alaska, and I moved all over this country, really from the West Coast and moving into the East Coast. But in the latter part of my life, we settled into Virginia. But throughout my childhood, it was a pretty happy childhood, but I didn't grow up a believer per se. And so I had heard about Jesus and heard about God, of course, and sometimes we went to church, but for the most part, it was really more of a distant thing, and God was not someone I really thought about whatsoever. So I really had an encounter with Jesus when I went away to college. I went to college in Ohio, and I went there on a full ride track scholarship, and I also had an academic scholarship as well. And so I went into college feeling that I had my life together. I had a plan. I had all these student organizations that I was going to be a part of, aside from the track team. I was a Division I athlete, so I felt that, life was pretty much in order. Well, I was probably 6 weeks into my freshman year, so first semester, and it was homecoming. And me and my roommates at the time, we went to a football game. And if anyone who's ever been on a athletic team in college, you know that your roommates are other athletes, typically. At least that's how it was at my college. So me and my track teammates went to the homecoming game, and we were there. And my college football team was not that fabulous, unfortunately. Still went, but they were known for not doing all that well. So that played out that night at homecoming, and so a lot of people started leaving around halftime, and my roommates left, and I thought, no guys, let's stay. I still had hope that we could win. They're like, no, we're not gonna win. And we didn't win, but I had hope that we would. Well, one of my other track teammates at the time, he was there with his roommates, and they left him, so we were just kind of like, oh, it's just us two here. We're pretty much the only people from the track team who still have faith that we're going to win here. And he said, well, you know what? There's a gospel choir concert tonight happening over in the student union, and do you want to go? And I thought, gospel choir concert? I mean, I guess, sure, why not? I just felt so excited to, be out of the house still. I was still on that high of, hey, I'm out of the house and I can do what I want and I can stay out as long as I want. So I'm excited for anything. I'm up for anything, even a gospel choir concert. Now, just to give you a little bit of background here, I did not listen to gospel growing up. So with my limited background in gospel, I went with my teammate to the gospel choir concert. And we get there, and for some reason, I was so moved by what was going on there. Never experienced it, but for some reason, I was arrested with just the beauty of it all. I came in, and for the first time in my life, I saw miming ministry. Never saw that before, but for some reason, it so pulled on my heart that I wept. Now, before Christ, so BC life, I did not cry very often. In fact, my parents would remark how when I would get a spanking, I wouldn't really cry. I just was not known for being a very emotional child or young adult at the time. So for me to cry was very unsettling to me. I didn't like feeling that way. I liked feeling in control, and I was not at that time. I felt soft, if that makes sense, or makes sense. And so as the night progresses, I saw a gospel choir, their singing was gorgeous, and everything is just making me cry. I'm like, what's going on with me? It's beautiful. Um, so as probably midway through the program, there's people are singing up there on the stage, and I'm just so moved by it all. And a lady gets up on the stage, she says, stop. Everybody stop what you're doing. And I'm thinking, how do you just get up and just stop the whole situation? But okay. So she gets up and she says, there's someone who's been through X, Y, Z, and then starts over A, B, C. Like, she went through my entire life up to that point. I didn't believe in Jesus. In fact, I highly doubted there was a God, period. She talked about someone who had been abused before, and very early in my childhood, I had experienced molestation. She put that out there. She talked about just all kinds of things, and it just felt like she read my mail, and it was very jarring to me because I did not tell anybody about those things. I only put out there what I wanted people to know about me, which was, hey, I'm an A student, I am a track athlete. Those are the things that you need to know about me. But it's like she knew everything. And I didn't tell anyone, so I knew that she didn't know. It wasn't some kind of rumor mill situation because we were just there for 6 weeks and you barely know anyone at that point. And something in my heart then realized this must be God. For her to know that much information, to know so intimately about me, then it must be God. And so at the end of her discussion about my life, she says, if that's you, I want you to come down here. It was like my body responded before my mind did. I stood up and I just knew that I knew that I knew that that was for me to come down. And this is the first time in my life, in a church setting, if you will, that I didn't care who was looking at me. I'd been to church, a few times here and there, and always there's this altar call at the end, and you're always kind of like, oh, who's going down? Everyone's kind of a little sheepish, a little nervous, be put in the spot like that. I didn't care that day. And so I went down there. She hugged me, and she began to pray so hard. That woman was sweating while she was praying for me. And I didn't care that she was sweating on me. As she was praying, I don't even know what she was saying, but I felt like chains just broke off of me. And I'm not even being, cliche, if you will. It really felt like there were things that were falling off of me. And I actually opened my eyes and I looked to see, like, was there something coming off me? Was my clothes falling off? What was going on? It just felt like weights were falling off of me. And I was bawling my eyes out. And for the first time at that moment, I felt peace in my life. I felt at ease. I felt at rest for the first time. I wasn't worried about whatever. I wasn't trying to strive and be perfect because I'm a perfectionist at heart. I didn't have any of that. I felt peace, and the weights had lifted off of me. It was as if the pain that I experienced throughout my life, by my parents divorcing and the molestation that had occurred early in childhood, it was gone. And I opened my eyes and I looked around that room. And I saw people weren't worried, craning to see who I was or what I was doing. Everyone in there had their eyes closed and their hands lifted, worshiping God. No one was worried about me. And I knew then that this is real. God is real. What I just experienced is real. And that's not to say that you have to have this dramatic conversion experience the way that I did, but I think that God knew that that's what I needed. He arrested me that night. And I went out of that place full of joy. I mean, I was so happy. I'd wake up thinking about him all the time. Couldn't wait to tell everyone about him. I had fallen in love that night with Jesus. And I'm happy to say that I've been in love with him ever since. But like with any love story, it's not perfect. And my relationship with Jesus definitely has not been perfect. Anyone who truly knows me can attest to that. But it's been persistent. And we've been together for about, 11 years this year. So As I grew in the faith, I realized I saw God's hand on my life. So I went to college and I'm running track. My track coach was a believer, and he would have Bible studies at his house, I think at that time every Thursday night. So me and my other friends on the track team who were Christians would go to his house, and he would have Bible study with us and his father-in-law and his wife. And man, that's such a sweet time. I look back on that. So coach, if you're watching, thank you. I love you. Um, they really poured into me, and my coach really became like my father figure away from home, because I'm a daddy's girl, so being away from my dad was tough, but my coach really stepped in and became like the spiritual father to me. And it was during this time that I really began to grow in my faith. I was hungry for the things of God. So I would, read my Bible. I would tell everybody about him. I was just eager to be back in Bible study, because that's where I felt the most alive, was when I was in his word and I was reading about him and learning about this Jesus. I really had a really quick transformation in a lot of different areas of my life. So cussing, I was able to stop that pretty well. Sometimes in my mind, I would still give somebody, a cuss out. Listening to music that I felt that wasn't glorifying to God, I was able to stop that immediately. And I know people have different opinions about that, but for me, I didn't want to listen to anything that didn't glorify God, that spoke to the things that he hates, that spoke to the things that he said would pull me away from him. Songs about lust or fornication or whatever else have you, if those songs are glorifying the very things that he says that he doesn't like, then I didn't want to have any parts in it. So that was easy for me to say, I don't want to hear it. But there was still areas in my life where I really struggled. I didn't want to hear about fornication, but I definitely wanted to participate in fornication, if you know what I mean. I look back and I realized that that was a stronghold in my life, and the seed for that was planted because that was awakened too early with my molestation that happened when I was a really young little girl. And so that is something that, was an area that I needed to heal from. And I had to learn over the course of the years of being a believer that healing doesn't happen immediately most of the time. Sometimes it is immediate. Sometimes, boom, it's done. But healing is often a tough, difficult, messy process, because a lot of the times the thing that we're healing from, it took a lot of time to build up in that area. So it's going to take some time to tear that down and rebuild something that's on the foundation of God. And so for me, that was an area that I really needed some help in. And so I would try in my own strength. I'm not going to be dating for a while and that didn't work, or I would try to, not do this or not do that. It's just for some reason I could not overcome in that area. Well, it got to the point where the church I was going to at the time, I met with a pastor for like counseling. And he said, I really just, feel led to tell you that you should abstain from dating for 6 months. Because I've not been single for I don't know how long. I always jump from relationship to relationship. And so I said, yeah, you know what? Sounds good. I'm going to do that. Again, relying on my own strength. So I resolved not to date. Well, a few days later, I met a guy at, I was visiting a church with one of my friends, and I met a guy there, and I thought, okay, I really know I shouldn't be dating. I've just made this resolve not to, but he's a Christian, I'm a Christian, we're supposed to be together. At least this is my thought as someone very young in the faith at the time. And on the surface it looked fine, but I learned that very quickly that there were some red flags in the relationship that I chose to ignore. So I learned that he had kept things from me, really pertinent information about it, but I kept ignoring those things for the sake of feeling like I want to make this work because I really want to have this relationship that's finally healthy. See, God, I can do this, actually, it's fine. And I wasn't learning how to trust God to bring who I needed. I took matters into my own hands. And so with this relationship, I was thinking, okay, we're Christian. I know that we shouldn't have sex. And he says that's fine. Well, we did have sex, once in a while. And then it became more frequent, to monthly. And then it just became even more frequent to the point where I got pregnant. And at this point, I'm in my junior year of college and I'm running track. I was involved in some organizations and I was devastated. So I thought, okay, this isn't great. He did not also think it was great as well. So I made the decision, and it is a decision that, I'm not going to terminate my pregnancy. I'm going to move forward and I'm going to become a mom. And I know a lot of people like to say that it's not a choice, but you make choices every day. It shouldn't be a choice, but it is a choice. Just like it shouldn't really be a choice to honor God. If you're thinking about it from a natural standpoint, why wouldn't you? But it is a choice. You're not forced to honor God or live for God, but you choose to do so. And in that moment, I chose to be a mother. And so in making that decision, I counted the cost and I understood that there was going to be a lot of shame that could happen. I was be disgraced. It was just embarrassment all around. I think a lot of you may identify with that feeling if you found yourself in that situation with an unexpected pregnancy and not being married and being very young, that, this situation is very painful, to say the least. So I was pregnant, and throughout the pregnancy, the relationship just got worse and worse and worse. I really didn't want to believe that I would be doing this alone, but it was pretty evident that I was going to be a single mom. Now, I was already a single mother because I wasn't married to him, but single in terms of, I'm going to be doing this thing alone here pretty soon. Well, the time came for me to have my oldest, my daughter, and I labored with her for, I don't know, I had her on Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving that year. So that Wednesday I went into labor. So I don't know, 2, almost 3 days of labor. And during that time period, I labored by myself with her, meaning I was, at home before active labor begins, really just managing these contractions until it's time for me to be admitted, and then my family drove up to come to the hospital because I went to college about 6 hours away from where my family lives in Virginia, which I count Virginia as home. So if you're from Virginia, hey, VA. So after I had my daughter, I just resolved that, you know what, I'm gonna do this. And whether you're here or not, whether you're a fan of this or not, I'm going to have her. And so at that point, our relationship was just in splinters and we just decided to end things. And I had moved in with him. I moved in with him the week before I had her. And we decided to move apart that February. So about 3 months later. Well, we decided to split up, and the day that I'm moving out, I enlisted my help from one of my friends, and he did not like I was moving out and had the help of my friend who was a male, but he became very upset, and it ended up being this whole situation where it ended very violently, and he put his hands on me, and so it was this domestic violence situation that ultimately caused the relationship to end very abruptly. It kind of drug on, but it ended very much so. And I found myself just kind of shattered in the sense that I really didn't, I felt that I didn't know this person that I had spent at that point 2 years with. I didn't know this person that I just had a child with. And it left me reeling. I think a lot of people thought like I did, which is I would never let a man put his hands on me. I would never find myself in a situation like that. And they kind of automatically shift the blame to the woman. But I want you to understand that I don't think someone just signs up to be, abused or for someone to hit them. It's multi-layered situation. And so I think people need to be a little bit more empathetic and understand with humility that, anyone can find themselves in that situation. So it's worth noting that the day that that domestic violence situation happened, I received my first acceptance letter to law school. It was the time period where after I had my daughter in November, and I took the LSAT, which is I think the law school admissions test. I took that the month before I had her, so that would have been October. And I just took it once. I can only afford to take it once. So I took it 8 months pregnant, and then I had her in November. And then I waited for till the last minute to apply to law schools because I knew that I would have a newborn, and I felt that maybe I couldn't do it. I think a lot of people around me at the time were saying, they were even questioning my decision to stay in college, much less going to law school. And so I felt a little discouraged. And by this time, my faith felt like it was just so far in the back of my mind, because I felt like, of all the things that I knew about Christianity, and I didn't know much, I knew that, having sex outside of marriage, was not of God, was just a no-no, and I did it anyway. And I felt that I knew better and I should have done better. It was really, really just like, what God has done with me then. I just felt like he didn't want anything else to do with me because I had broken his precepts, so I thought. And so after the situation happened that February, I think I applied maybe 2 weeks before that situation happened. Well, the day that it did happen, and I'm in the hospital getting treated on my face, I got an email from one of the law schools that said that I was accepted. So I was like, well, would you look at the irony there? I'm accepted to go to law school while I just, endured a very unlawful situation, if you know what I mean. And so at that point, I was supposed to go live with one of my friends, and she said she did not want to have that, so she changed her mind. So I had me and my 3-month-old at the time, and I didn't know what else to do. So I found myself with nowhere to stay. I decided to go to one of those motels that are like a kind of extended stay thing. I don't remember the specific name of it, but I stayed there. And I had my clothes and my daughter's clothes like in trash bags in my car. So between that motel and my car, that's kind of where we were. And I contacted the public assistance office for that county because I had been receiving food stamps and Medicaid and child care assistance because I met the guidelines under Ohio's regulations at that time for being a full-time student with the requisite income. So I contacted them, and they said, well, we consider you homeless. You don't have an address. And I was literally just a few dollars away from, I really don't know what would have happened at that point. So I'm sure I probably would have just went home to my family back in Virginia. So thankfully, during that time period, I was finally able to find a place to rent for a short term just to get me through graduation. And so as the weeks went on, I'd gotten some letters saying, hey, I'd been accepted other places. Some I had been waitlisted at, but there was one school in particular that I applied to, and I just didn't hear from them again. Now, mind you, I applied to schools that waived my admissions fee because I think I checked a box saying, hey, I'd like to be contacted by law schools when I made my account on LSAC, which I think is the Law School Admissions Council, which governs your admissions process for law schools. So there was one school that contacted me, Emory University, and I'd heard of them before, but at this point I just was applying anywhere. I didn't really have any thoughts, organized plan here about where I would apply to. I just was applying to schools that waived my fee, and I didn't hear from Emory. Well, I found a place to stay, as I said earlier, and I received an email from them while I was staying there, probably about March or so, saying, hey, hope to see you at our Admitted Students Weekend. And I thought to myself, Admitted Students Weekend? I never heard from you all, so is this a fluke? Because I didn't get a denial or an admittance one way or the other. So I called the school, and I called the admissions office, and the lady I spoke to, she says, huh, you didn't receive anything from us? I says, no, I just got an email from you all. She says, well, hold on one second. Let me email you over something. I said, okay, thank you. So I hung up, I checked my email, and there was a scanned copy of an acceptance letter saying, hey, you've been accepted. And I was thrilled. I mean, I had gone through so much by that point. I mean, found myself, out of I'm just going to say it for what it was, an abusive relationship, really trying to recover from this domestic violence situation that ended it. Newly single mother, of at that point, probably a 4-month-old at that time. In the last couple of weeks of college. I'm really just trying to finish it and just get through. And I got this admittance letter, and written at the bottom of my letter was a note from the dean of admissions saying, I loved your story because I wrote about my daughter, and I wrote about the fact that I was pregnant in my personal statement. And he said, I love that, and we'd love to have you and your daughter down here in the fall. Hope to see you at admitted students weekend. And I was thrilled. Words can't express how happy I was. So I said, yes, I'm coming down for admitted students weekend. And they said, well, we're going to fly you down, and we're going to pay for you and your daughter to stay at this hotel that's on our campus, which was beautiful. And they paid for our weekend there. And it was amazing. We went there. I met incredible people from all over the country and all over the world at this school. We got to sit in on classes, and we got to go to restaurants and tour the campus, and it was just amazing. And one class in particular I visited, it was a real property class. And a lot of people I went to school with may be familiar with this moment. They have the students visiting, so I go in to visit. And they're saying, hey, you guys can attend this real property class. And I said, well, I'm going to sit this one out because I have a 4-month-old who will scream. And I'm going to be embarrassed if she bursts out screaming and crying, during this thing. She's an infant, He said, no, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. And I'm thinking, you guys, it really won't be. She's about to wake up because, I knew her sleeping pattern at the time. Sure enough, we're sitting in the class, and I have my stroller next to me with my baby, and I'm the only person on this trip who has a baby, so I'm already feeling super embarrassed and feeling super judged, and everybody's eyes are on me, and they're wondering why I'm here. Just a lot of insecurities with that. Well, Reagan, my daughter, starts to cry, and the professor comes over to me, and he peers down at me. He says, is this your baby? And I said, yes. And he says, well, give her here. Let me have her. So he picks her up, and he begins to lecture with her while he's holding her. And I was just floored by just that simple act of support and welcoming me and my daughter into this community. I mean, my heart was won over. And what made everything better, or even better, was the fact that they gave me a scholarship that covered half of my tuition. I was just like, yes, I'm coming here. I met some great girls who I feel like they're still my friends today, and I was just over the moon about going down there to start law school.